Hi, everyone, and welcome to our software success embroidery software lesson today. So I'm glad to be here with you as always. You guys know this is where we learn about all things software from Dime. So today we've got a really special topic I'll be sharing with you in just a bit, and I think it's something you guys are going to love because it has been requested quite a bit. So we've got a fun topic today. So if you haven't already, tell me over in the chat where you are watching from. Say hi. We'll give just a few minutes to let everybody pipe in and join us today, because you guys are not going to want to miss any of this topic. So if you are new here, this is again our software success. We hold this software lesson on the first and the third Tuesday of every month. And this is where I try to convince you to love your software as much as I love my software. And I think that we're doing a great job. I think a lot of you guys are using your software more, really getting familiar with it. And that's exactly what it takes to just get comfortable with it, is just to use it, play around with it, and explore it. So, and so let's say hi to some people that we've got with us here today. So Irene M., thank you for being here from Wenatchee, Washington. Thank you for being. I used to live in Washington State, so I know exactly where you're talking about. Gail, thanks for being here from the High Desert, California. I'm glad to have you here. Caroline Booth, thank you for joining too from South Texas. So we have lots of familiar names. Barbara Jones, glad to have you here from Houston. My friend Harriet Ann, who is in Fort Smith, Arkansas right now. Thanks for joining, Harriet Ann. Good to see you. Kathy Purdy, thank you for being here. Austin, Texas. So I know Kathy uses her software a ton. Our friend Dawn Chase from Creative Appliques, thank you for joining. She says from sweltering Virginia. I bet there's a lot of places that are sweltering this time of year. So, and Reen, thanks for being here. Reen, she is of Embroidery Gardens. You guys know Reen Wilcoxon, and our very own Aine McCarthy from the DFW area. I know that you guys know her as well. So, Callie, thanks for being here. Haven't seen Callie in a little bit, but I'm glad to have you with us. Thank you so much. Elizabeth Pie, I just want a name that sounds so tasty like pie. Thanks for being here, Elizabeth. Also in Washington State. So glad to have you guys. And again, so like I said, I know we have a lot of familiar viewers with us today. And so on Software Success, we do talk all things Dime software. So if you've got questions, make sure you ask me over in the chat. I love to answer your questions. And sometimes you guys even ask questions that are unrelated to what we're talking about, and that is perfectly fine. I want you to get your answers whenever it's on your mind, because really the best way to learn software is to start using it for what you need it to do for you. So think of one task, start using your software. If it's just adding text, accomplish that, and then you can, of course, add on and learn more and more as you go. But one task at a time is the easiest, and I know a lot of times the things that I'm talking about are, a lot more in depth. But even if you only take one thing from this presentation that you're going to learn, it's still worth it to practice that one thing and get better and better at it for sure. So, okay, so let's talk about the topic that we're going to be viewing today, and I'm going to be sharing with you. This is something that I get asked quite regularly, and that is, how can I convert an artwork to an embroidery file? And that artwork may be a cut file. You may have cut files that have come with your digital cutter. You may have illustrations. You may have quilting patterns. If anybody has any quilting applique patterns that you've wished that you could convert to stitches, then I'm going to show you how to do that today. And images for tracing. So clip art images. There's lots of terms that we use for artwork or something that's not already turned into stitches, line drawings, all of those things. We have the ability to somehow convert those to stitching. And I know that this is a scary word, but really what we are doing is digitizing. And that word is definitely scary to a lot of people, but it is so easy. It's as simple as, tracing your image, or either using features in the software that will auto trace the image, and then select the type of stitches that you want. So that's the easiest way to get started. And then as you're test stitching, you're going to learn more about how the stitches react to the fabric and what things that you need to change to make sure that it stitches out perfectly. And so the topic today is basically taking those different types of artwork and converting them to stitches. Now, I'm going to be using something that you would recognize as like an applique that you would get from a quilt pattern, but certainly this will work with other types of images as well. So let's talk about vector files versus raster files for a moment, because they are two distinctly different animals, and you would digitize them or turn them into stitches in two totally different ways. Okay, so vector files, first and foremost, if you can get a vector file when you are wanting to turn it into an embroidery design, then that is the best place to start, but we can't always get a vector file. Now, what are vector files? So vector files are artwork that are created by reference points and curves and paths, whereas a raster image is a bunch of pixels, like a photograph, that makes up that artwork. Now, when we resize a vector file, it doesn't lose its quality, but when we resize a raster file, then it's going to lose its quality and get grainy and make it a little bit more difficult to digitize. You've got to, trace those straight edges, and if they're pixelated, then it takes a little more effort, but it's still doable. So vector files are easily changed into embroidery, and they're usually layered, and you can select those different colors easily. And when I say a vector file, you probably already have some of these. Common formats are like SVG, FCM, EPS, AI, WMF for a Windows meta file, and an EMF, DXF, and a PLT. Now, for you guys out there, the most commonly used vector file these days with all of our cutters is probably going to be an SVG file, and you may have some for your brother Scan and Cut called an FCM. Now, raster files, those are your JPEGs, your PNGs, your GIFs, your TIFFs. Those files are the ones that when we resize, they kind of get grainy. And this is a better close-up image of what's happening. On the left there, that's a scalable vector file, which is what SVG stands for. That's a vector file that when we resize it, it's not grainy. But take a look at the cherry on the right. That has a grainy edge because it is made up of pixels. And as we make it larger, they get larger and the edges seem to get fuzzy. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, where can you get vector files? There are plenty of places to get them. So in any Dime software that has the artwork tool, you can create your own vector files with the artwork tool, and then being able to save it as a vector file type is the key. And then you can also look on Google for clip art type images. If you use the word clip art, it'll give you those cartoon-like images. You don't want to do images. You don't want photographs. That's what I'm trying to say. You want the clip art style to work with. And you can even Google or search in your favorite search engine, clip art SVG or SVG cut files, free SVG cut files. So just do that kind of search. The one thing I will tell you are you're going to get a lot of images that are copyright and have license restrictions. Please, please, please abide by those. The artists that create those spend a lot of time creating them. So be respectful of their license and restrictions. So sometimes you can select on Google to have a creative license, and it'll kind of narrow some of those down for you. And you can use those. Now, you can also, you guys have heard a lot about AI. AI is able to generate free images for you, and then we can convert them. They generally create raster images, so I really shouldn't have even had it in this list, but you can then use the software to turn them into a vector. But cut files, you guys that all have a digital cutter out there, you probably have cut files that are available for your digital cutter, and those can be opened in our software and converted to embroidery. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to be using several tools, and you guys know that our Dime tools and features work together. And so I'm going to be using several of these tools. So I wanted to list which software has which, and then I will come back to this after we've seen these different tools and we know how they're going to work. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is this little print, a basically like an applique looking that you would get for like a with your quilt pattern or something, but it's just separate pieces of a cute little ice cream cone that we're going to be working with. So I'm going to show you several different ways to do this. The first one is the auto-vectorizing option that is in Perfect Embroidery Pro and Cut and Stitch software. So this little wizard hat here, when I open it, I'm going to select to convert this to a type of an artwork instead of auto stitches. And then I'm going to say browse for that image. This is an apple that I was messing with here, but let's do the ice cream. Okay, so my ice cream cone. So I've actually created this image several different ways so that you could see. If you have something like this that's on paper, you can use your scanner to scan it in, which is what I did here. I scanned it in 300 DPI and 600 DPI to show you the difference. And I actually did not even see a difference in these two. So the 300 DPI is perfectly fine. And I also scanned in using my phone. This is a program called Cam Scanner, and it is a program I have on my phone, an app I have on my phone that will make a scan. So you could do that. You could also scan in from like your scan and cut. If you have a scan and cut, you can scan on the bed of the scan and cut and it'll convert these to FCM files. So you can do that. And I also just took a photograph here with my phone. So you can also take a photograph of what you want to make and bring that in as well. So let's look at some different ways to actually digitize and convert these different pieces here. Okay, so I'm going to just use my scan document here that was just on my scanner, but again, the image and things like that will work. And my wizard, I just want to answer these questions. You can tell it what size you want this to be, and then you can use these transfer tools, but I'm just going to click next. I'm going to make this as easy as possible. And then it is actually generating an artwork file for me right now. Okay. And so this file, whenever it comes up, it'll give me the colors that it has selected. So it's picked up two different colors, the white and the black. Now, the white is the background of the paper, but let me give you a tip. I would check this, and I'll tell you why. You can always delete what you don't want, but the artwork outline, I know from experience, is not what I want today. So I'm going to check the white so that it gives me the part in the middle of my cone and in the middle of my scoop, and we'll see all of that as well. Okay, and so I'm just going to click finish, and it's going to do its magic, and it's going to put that on the screen. Now, this is auto-converted to artwork so that I can turn it into an embroidery image. So when I click on it, this is the background piece of paper that I don't need. So I'm just going to do a delete, right mouse click and delete, or press the delete on your keyboard. And then let me zoom in here. So now what I have left is the black outline, and I have the white that is the center of each of my images. Okay, so let's change the color of these so that we can see what we're working with. And I'm just going to change them to colors that we probably would want for our file. So just like that. Okay, so now the black outline is separate than my colored interior. So I'm going to slide this out of the way so that you can see what I mean. So the black outline, if I had not checked the white box, it would have come in with this black outline. And let's say you want this to be an applique or a run stitch or whatever. It's going to make an outline on the outside of that black line and on the inside of that black line because it sees the black as the artwork that you want to digitize, and it sees the white as open area that we don't want to digitize. Whereas this colored triangle here for our cone, it sees this as we want stitches or fabric or something where all this color is. So it's going to put stitches just on the outside of our color. So let's do the two of them to compare so that you can see the difference. Okay, so my cone here, if I want to turn this into an applique, in my effects panel, I just click on the applique option, okay? And now that's an applique. I'm done. I could save that and I stitch it out. It's going to give me a placement, an tack down, and that finish running stitch, okay? And then this here, if I want this to be an applique and I click applique, at first glance, it kind of looks normal, but I'm going to change this to a lighter color, and you can see that I actually have two areas of stitching here. So let's watch this stitch out on the screen. There is our cone that we had the solid color, and that stitches out correctly, but watch what happens with this light pink. I get a placement and a tack down, and it looks okay, but it's actually doing that on both the inside and the outside of that black line. So now look at this. I'm getting another line on the outside. Okay, so that's why I said that I brought this in and just had it do the background, because I can use that as my artwork piece. So now I'm going to delete this. I'm just pressing the delete on my keyboard. If I go over to my sequence view here, I can actually select all of the black components, that the outlines, and just delete them all at one time. And now I'm just left with my different pieces of my cone. Okay, so I'm going to open these up and I want you to take a look. So the cherry, you can see that's artwork. The stem, artwork. The scoop that's pink, artwork. Now this says applique because we've turned it into stitches. I accidentally hit my delete key, so I just did my undo. So applique, that means that it's stitches, and it's got a number there as to how many stitches that actually is. And then my green is still artwork. So now if we want all of this to be applique, you just select it in your effects panel, click on applique. If you do not have an effects panel, I'm going to undo. Some of our software has the ability to convert to applique, but it doesn't have the effects panel. This is something from Perfect Embroidery Pro. You can right mouse click, find your convert to tools under your right mouse click, and then just choose applique. Now, everything on the screen is an applique. This little stem here is so tiny that I might turn that into a complex fill instead of an applique. So I'm going to right mouse click, convert to a complex fill. Okay, so now that is a just a stitch, and I don't have an applique. Okay, so now let's build our ice cream cone. So I'm going to take my green scoop here and put it over my cone. And then I'm going to take my pink scoop, and actually I think I'm going to do it the other way around, but we can change our colors because I want the red, I think, next to the green, I think would look cutest. And plus, look, they're in the wrong order, which is going to make a huge difference as well. Okay, so I've got my stem up there and all of my little cute little scoops. Okay, so now let's get this in the right order, because if we watch this stitch out, it is going to stitch incorrectly, so that we've got our part of our cherry hidden, part of our pink scoop hidden. So I want the pink to stitch before the cherry and after the green. So over in our sequence view, I can drag these elements into the order that I want them to stitch. Or a lot of times, if I know what I want to stitch first, I'll just send it to the back in that order. Okay, but let's drag them in the right order. I think that makes the best sense. So the first thing that we need to stitch is the cone, right? And so that is going to be the very first thing. So I'm going to bring it to the bottom here, or it needs to stitch back, the very first thing on the bottom. And then we want our green layer to stitch, and then our pink layer to stitch after the green, and then our cherry and our stem. Okay, so for the stem, I'm going to move that to the top because I actually want that behind my cherry stitches. And then I've got my cherry that is going to stitch next, but that's not how I want that either. So if we drag this down to the very bottom, do you see how it puts our cherry right on top? Okay, and don't worry about that overlap. We're going to talk about that. And then my cherry at the and let's drag our green underneath that, and then our pink underneath the green to put that in the right order. Okay, so that's our order of stitches. You could also do the send to back option or the move to the front option. If a lot of times I'll do that if it's only one thing that I need to change the order of to bring it to the correct order. But here, if we watch this stitch out, our cherry is going to stitch. Now I could have moved that up a little bit, but I would probably do that the similar color of my cone, so I could stitch those together. Then we've got the green and then the pink and then the cherry. Okay, now each one of these pieces are of type applique, except for the stem. If I open these up, do you see how they all say applique, 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 applique? So when you save this to your embroidery machine format, it will remove that satin stitching for you. So File, Save As. I always like to save this as a C2S file. That's just going to be so you can get back to everything. And I'm just going to call that our ice cream and then click Save. C2S is going to remember all of this information so that it's easy for me to change. Now for the machine format, File, Save As, and you're going to select your embroidery machine format. So PES, VP3, XXX for Singer, EXP, DST, whatever your format is. I'm going to choose PES for my embroidery machine. And then I'm going to leave it ice cream. And then I'm going to click Save. Okay. So now let's open that PES file. This right here is the C2S file. I can see that right here. It says ice cream.c2s. That's the native file format. If I go to File and Open, open means it's going to open on a new workspace. If I go to my desktop and I locate the ice cream cone that is the PES file, that's the C2S, and this is the PES file. Click OK or to open, and you can see that it has cut away those satin stitches automatically so that I don't have them underneath my satin stitches. So you can see I get my stem, I get the base of my cone, and then my green layer, the pink layer, and the red of the cherry. Now that had a few little spots there that I could have made this overlap a little bit more and it would have taken care of that, but I certainly can go ahead and fix that. So if I just hide my green stitching so that I can see this a little bit better, I could select these and just delete them. So those little satin areas there, I could just delete them and that way I don't have them. But remember, I could have overlapped more and it would have not probably given me those. Okay, so and there's my applique. So cute, right? And so that's how you can convert artwork to stitches. Now we're going to see other ways to do that in working with artwork, but let's see if we have any questions or comments. And so I'll scroll back here and see what questions we have. So first from Irene, she says, in PEP, how can I eliminate the overlapping stitches? So I just showed that, Irene. Save it to your machine file format, and that is the file you're going to take to your machine. The key is they must be type applique, and they must be overlapping, not just on top of one another. You must have overlap to make that work. So just save it to your format. And then Irene also says, when scanning in the drawing as a line drawing on the luminaire, what format does it create? I don't scan in on a luminaire, so I can't speak for that. If there's anybody else in the chat that scans in on their luminaire, then you certainly can answer. If you are scanning using that mat that is that attaches to your embroidery machine, if that's what you're referring to, it's going to come in as the format for your machine, and only your embroidery machine will read that, or either the Brother software or the Palette software will read that, and it's probably a PHX. But somebody please chime in and correct me if I'm wrong on that. So and then just looking down through here to see if we have any other questions. And so Darlene says, not many digitizing programs handle SVG scan and cut types files. I'm eager to hear more about Dime's ability to digitize these files. Yeah, it's super easy. So, and I'll be showing you that coming back here when we go back into the software. And then Mickey says, if I need to get to my cut and stitch, do I need to make it the default? I bought Word Art and Stitches and that comes up now. No, you can leave whichever one you want, Mickey, as the default, and then you can access the tools over on the right hand side. And I'll go in and show you that, but please go back to past software success and review on the software success lesson that was called integrating, I think, software and maximizing your tools. That will tell you everything you need to know about using all of your features together in one place. So, and then Linda Johnson says, if the design has overlap but not with applique, will the program still delete the overlap? It depends on which program you have, Linda. If you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can remove the overlap from a complex fill. But other of our dime software don't remove that overlap automatically. So, but the complex fill and Perfect Embroidery Pro does. So what's the easiest way to watch the replay? So Gail, if you go to Dime's YouTube channel, Designs in Machine Embroidery, and click the tab that says playlist, it's actually everything is grouped under a playlist called Software Success, and you can go back and watch all of the past episodes if you want. So, and then Jane says, is PEP the only version that automatically removes the extra stitches? No, that also happens in Cut and Stitch and Patch and Applique Maker. If you're doing an applique. So Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, and PEP will remove the overlapping stitches of an applique automatically. If you're talking about fill stitches, Perfect Embroidery Pro is the only one that will remove overlapping fill stitches. So another really great question for sure. So, and then Sandra says, do you make a bobbin for each of the colors, or do you use one color on the back? So most of the time when we're doing applique, we're putting it on a fabric that's going to be in something else. And so we just use the same color bobbin on the entire design, and that's your regular embroidery bobbin. And honestly, most things that I do that. So the only time I match my bobbin is if I'm doing like freestanding lace, something that truly is like a reversible design, but it's a personal preference. I know there's plenty of people out there that match their colors on the back that they do on the front, but I don't. The back of the embroidery is the back of the embroidery unless it is meant to be reversible. And then I would match my thread color to the front and the back. So where do you get this software? So Toy Doggy Brand, I would recommend first and foremost, check for a local dime dealer. If you go to our Dime DZGNS page, we have a dealer locator. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I think it is. So look for the dealer locator. Try to find a local dealer. Support local. For one, they can give you a way better deal. For two, then you've got a person, an actual person that you can go to and get help from. But then you also have tons of free education for us here at Dime on any software. So that's first and foremost. If you don't have a dealer near, you can also check out on our dzgns.com Facebook page, or not Facebook page, on our actual page website, and purchase our software there. So check that out at dzgns.com. You can purchase there, but I always love for you guys to purchase local. It's a greater help to the local shops. It's a greater help to you because that gives you another avenue for education as well. So it's just all around a good option. And then what is your best digitizing software to do everything, or do you need to buy multiple packages? So Darlene, I would say Perfect Embroidery Pro is the program if you want to digitize. It has all of the tools that you need to manually do anything that you want to do, okay? All of our other software are, I like to call them like a one-click wonder. So if you wanted to digitize lace, but you don't know how, My Lace Maker gives you the ability to just click and it'll fill a shape with lace. And lace is something that has to be digitized so it stays connected and doesn't fall apart when we rinse away our stabilizer. So, but anything that is done, you can manually do in Perfect Embroidery Pro if you know how to digitize. You can manually create anything in Perfect Embroidery Pro. Our other programs are kind of those, one-click options for doing those things that we love to do. So it just adds those, features to your embroidery collection of software. So, okay, perfect. So I think that's a great place to pause. So let's go back over and talk about if you have a an SVG file or a FCM file, an artwork file. Okay, here, this was an image or a piece of paper that I scanned in to produce this. But if you have a file that is, let me start a new workspace here. If you have a vector file already, an SVG, an FCM that comes from your scan and cut, if you choose File and Import Artwork, it will open this up on your page in the same way that you open a design. So let me go locate my ice cream option here. And we'll bring that in. So my convert to stitches here. And so here's my ice cream. And do you see how now my ice cream says SVG? So this is an SVG file of that same ice cream cone that I created. Okay. So when I click open for the artwork, this is ready to convert into embroidery. All I have to do is right mouse click, convert to, and choose the type of stitches that I want. Done. Now, is that easy or what? Now, of course, we said we didn't want our stem to be applique, so I can go back and select it separately, right mouse click, convert to a complex fill. Or a satin stitch actually would be really good since it's tiny. So I could make that a satin stitch. So now I've just created an applique from an SVG file that I imported into my software. Now that was so easy and so quick. Let's do that again. So File, Import Artwork, locate your SVG or your FCM or your WMF or your AI file, all of those formats that you see listed right here. These are all of the artwork file formats that we read. So you can purchase files in these formats. You may already own some in your cutter file formats, SVG or FCM. And there are lots of free ones out there as well. Just like I said, make sure you check the licensings for what you're doing. If you can get an SVG file or an FCM file or any artwork file, and you choose File, Import Artwork, select the SVG, open. Right now, it is already an artwork file that all I have to do is turn it into stitches. So you can see over here, just like our one that we talked about earlier, it's all artwork. So if you have scanned in something on your scan and cut or on another program that automatically converts to an SVG, you can just open these in and convert to stitches. Now, it doesn't have to be applique. Right mouse click, convert to. I can convert to any of these types that I have here because I own all of Dime software. You may not have all of these options in your list, but I can convert to those options here. So I'm going to convert both of these to complex fill so we can talk about the remove overlap here. This is complex fill on top of complex fill, so you can see that we've got those overlapped areas there. The only program that we have that automatically will remove these is Perfect Embroidery Pro. And the way you do that is you select the item that is on top, in this case my cone, right mouse click, utility, and remove overlaps. And then it actually cuts away the area that's overlapping so that you don't have it. Now, if you do not have Perfect Embroidery Pro, but you do have the shape tool, that's an easy way to edit your shape. So use this shape tool. You can see these nodes that make up my shape. I could add a node and bring that down here and then bring this a little bit lower. And then I'm going to have to add another node here so that I can kind of make this be my shape of my cone here. And whoops, and then you can see it already changed the shape here, and I was just trying to click and drag that down, and I need to change this because it's a it's changing my two different points, and I need them to be separately like that. Okay, so now I'm just changing the shape of the cone. I'm going to leave this. Do you see this arc right here? I'm going to leave that just so you can see what's happening. Now watch when I pull this away. Now I just changed the shape of my cone to manually cut that out, okay? So I'm going to do an undo and put that back. And let's go and take our artwork here. Now, if I wanted this to be a run stitch, I just do right mouse click, convert to a run stitch. Right mouse click, convert to a satin stitch or a steel stitch. Now, a satin stitch is not a good idea for this because that's going to try to fill that entire shape with a satin stitch. A steel stitch goes around the outside and just follows along the outside, so that would be a good one. And as you can tell, that looks like an applique, but it's not. It doesn't have the placement stitch and the tack down. So if you want the placement stitch and the tack down, you need to choose type applique, and that's also the type that would do the overlap for you. Right mouse click, convert to applique. Okay, and then when I save this, it would automatically cut away the applique, but it's not going to automatically cut away the fill stitch. It will only automatically cut away for the applique. Now, what if you do not have a patch and applique maker or cut and stitch or PEP that automatically cuts that away? What can you do? So you can separate these pieces out. So I'm going to make everything an applique just so we've got something that looks normal here. So I'm going to convert this one to an applique as well. And let's talk about deleting this overlapping area. If you look over here in the applique, it is one object. It's an applique object. That gives you a placement and a tack down and a finishing stitch. And so if you want to see those three parts separately, you could do a right mouse click and break up path. Now, not every software has break up path, but what it does is, see how it separated out my run stitch, my placement stitch, and my applique stitch separately? So now I can just select the applique stitch and I can go back to my shape tool, and let me zoom in here, my shape tool, and I can add a point right here. I'm going to just add a point and add a point over here. And then I'm going to split that line. I'm going to select that point and say split line, select this point and say split line. And now you can see that my green dot is here, my red dot is here, so for my start and stop, but this piece right here is now a separate piece, and I can just press the delete on my keyboard and I have removed those stitches. Okay, if you do that without breaking up, let's see that. So let's choose our shape tool, and here I'm going to add a point and add a point. The points are allowing me to split it right there. If it doesn't have a point, then I add one so that I can split exactly right there. So I'm going to split that and split that. If you don't break it up, here's what will happen. It will delete your placement and your tack down. Notice here I still have the placement and the tack down for my piece of fabric, but here I do not. Now, that's not a huge deal in this small area, but certainly this would be ideal if you keep the placement and the tack down, and then the finishing stitch only goes over the areas that you want. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So let me go back and show this page here before we answer questions, because here's some of the tools that I'm using. So the import artwork, if you want to bring in an artwork file like an SVG and FCM or any other vector files, these are the programs that will do it. So PEP, Word Art and Stitches, My Quilt Embellisher, My Block Piecer, Vintage Embroidery, My Lace Maker, Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, and Special FX, which we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks. So all of those have the import artwork tool. Okay, we haven't talked load backdrop, so I'll show you that next. Whoops, sorry. And the magic wand, we're going to talk about that next. So the convert to applique option, you can do that in PEP, My Quilt Embellisher, Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, and SFX. And if it has the convert to applique, it should remove that overlap automatically on those. At least when I isolate, I've tested PEP, PAM, and Cut and Stitch, and it all does for those. The auto-vectorizing wizard that I used, that I scanned in the image and I brought that in, that is in PEP and Cut and Stitch, but I'm actually going to show you how you can use the backdrop tool to automatically trace if you don't have the wizard. Okay, the export artwork option, if you want to save what you're doing as a cut file, these are the programs that have export artwork. You can use the cutter tool in Patch and Applique Maker and Cut and Stitch, and then these others have export artwork capability. And the breakup path that I just did for applique is part of PEP, My Quilt Embellisher, Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, and Special FX, which again, you're going to see more about that in a minute. So, okay. Coming up, I'm going to answer some questions, and then we're going to talk about how to manually trace an image if you only have a raster image that you can work with that you want to trace. So let's see what questions that we have here. So Darlene says, I'd like to see Sewing Machines Plus host a specific digitizing fest with Dime someday. So much to cover. That would be awesome. Darlene, tell them at Sewing Machines Plus. You tell Blaine that would be awesome to have digitizing fest. So, but unfortunately, not everybody loves to digitize like they love to sew. And then Marianne, thanks for being here, Marianne. So she said, PEP is absolute best. It's the easiest software to learn and use, especially with all of Dime's great educators. Oh, thank you, Marianne. That is so nice. I appreciate you saying that. And then Elizabeth Pye says, can you use fills from the special FX in PEP? Yes, you can. And when I go back over there, I'll actually show you a little snippet. I forgot to show that. I'll show you how to use those features from the other programs. Like I said, go back and rewatch the integrating software and maximizing capabilities. In that software success, I go over it into a ton of detail as well. So, and then how much is this software? So I'm actually using a combination of several different software. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to bring in an image and turn it into an applique, Cut and Stitch will do that. Perfect Embroidery Pro will do that. My Quilt Embellisher will do that. And so those, but let me know what you specifically want to do for the particular software. So that's a great question. I know it's very confusing. So Darlene says, is your break apart and break the path? Can you later merge? Yes, you can break apart and combine is the opposite of that. So that's a really good question. And so, yeah, not all situations exactly are best for that. But yes, break apart. And then if you combine, that's our opposite of our break apart. So, and that's an icon on the toolbar as well. So another really good question. So, and then Darlene also says, can Pro allow you to create your own fills? Yes, you can. Create your own fills, and you can also digitize edge-to-edge quilting designs. Absolutely, you can do that in Perfect Embroidery Pro. So really good question. So, and then Linda says she didn't really use her software until she started getting lessons from the Dime educators. Ashley, Ain, Tammy, Lisa, bravo. Yes, thank you. That is so nice, Linda. I appreciate you saying that. We do have a great group of educators. So, and then Annie says, do you have the list of print of what programs do what? So Annie, that has been a request for some time. We are in the process. So I've made the list and we are trying to make it look like something that's understandable. So our marketing team is working on that list, and hopefully you'll see that posted on our website. And I'll make sure to tell you whenever I do see that in one of my software success, so you'll know to go look for it. So, okay, so let's go back over and let's do the backdrop tool in the software, and let me show you how to access your different features here as well. So, so if you have multiple Dime pieces of software, you'll see icons over here to the right-hand side. So my cursor is blinking in the top right of my screen. All of these colored icons represent the software that you own. So if you wanted to own a feature, if you want to own a, or I'm sorry, to use a feature from another software, then you would click this option. So let me go back. Let me do an undo here so I can get an artwork, and we'll actually use one. So I'm going to go back until I have an artwork shape. So I'm just doing my undo key like a ton of times so I can get to that artwork. So let's say you wanted to turn this into My Lace, or to lace with My Lace Maker. So if you click on your icon over here, and you've got the option for the lace grid, and so now that's a freestanding lace shape. Okay, so your SFX, which we're going to be talking about this actually this Thursday on Between Friends, I'm going to be talking about the new SFX software. So your features for SFX would be right there under that icon. So if you want to see what that software is all about, join me this Thursday, and then I'm going to have a lesson on it on the next software success. But select your item on screen and then use your features under these options here. Some of those settings are under your right mouse click menu as well. So go back and check out that integrating, I think it was called integrating software and maximizing capabilities. Those 2 episodes was all about using the software together as a whole. So make sure you check that out. Okay, so now let's say that you don't have the wizard and you don't have an artwork and you want to create stitches out of an image or a file that you've found. Okay, so I'm going to open up a new page. File, new. And then we're going to use our backdrop tool for this. So the backdrop tool really works great with the artwork tools because you're really going to trace the design. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in, let's just do a JPEG this time. This is a common format. You might download it, so I'll use that as the option. So I'm just going to click on my JPEG. So you can see that this looks just like my item that I brought into the wizard. Okay, but with a backdrop, I can't select this. I'm clicking and dragging and nothing has happened. Look over here in my sequence view where my mouse is blinking. Notice that I have nothing. I have no options. Whereas on our other ones, you can see that I have objects that I can select. But on this one, I have nothing. This is just the backdrop so that you can trace over this with your artwork tools that you have in your software. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of different ways to trace. So the artwork tool, you can select the drop down and choose the pen option. The pen option allows you to trace anything with points. So like this, for instance, I'm going to click, and I'm going to click. I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom. Well, I can, and don't make a point. We'll just do that just for quick. And then I can click up here, and then I'm going to hit the C on my keyboard, and it'll close my shape. Now, let me hide my backdrop. So in the bottom left, you've got this icon that's called backdrop tool. It turns your backdrop off and on. Okay, and see, that's what I just drew. Now that I've drawn it, look at it over here in my sequence view. It's an artwork. All I have to do is right mouse click and convert to an applique or whatever you want, complex fill, whatever type of stitching you want. Okay, so now let's turn our backdrop back on. Okay, so I just manually trace that. In Perfect Embroidery Pro, you have this magic wand tool, which will auto trace, which is nice. This is another really great thing about Perfect Embroidery Pro. So if I click my artwork option, you can see how now my magic wand is illuminated. Whereas before, when I just had my select tool, you can see how the magic wand is not active. Okay, so I have to click my artwork tool or one of my digitizing stitches for the artwork to turn on. I like to start with artwork and then convert it to stitches, but you certainly could select the type of stitch you want and go ahead and convert it as soon as you trace it. So let's see the difference. So I'm going to click my artwork tool. Now my magic wand is illuminated. So I'm going to click my magic wand, and now look at my cursor. It looks like a wand. So now if I click inside of this and then hide my image, look at that. Could that be easier? So that magic wand is part of Perfect Embroidery Pro that will auto trace a shape. And then now this is artwork. So I need to convert it to whatever type of stitches that I want. So that's a run. We could do applique. We could do complex fill, whatever you have in your software. Okay. So let's make that a different color to make it kind of cute. Okay. So now let me turn my backdrop on again. Okay, now let's say we want this one to be an applique, and you know you want it to be an applique. And so instead of choosing the artwork, I'm going to choose the applique tool. This is applique input tool. Notice how my magic wand is now illuminated, and I've got it selected, and I can tell because my magic wand is on the screen. Now, when I click on this shape, look how it didn't turn it into artwork. It automatically turned it into an applique. Now I'm going to choose, let's say, the satin stitch here, and my artwork is already on. I'm going to click and turn my stem into satin stitch. Let's change that to a darker color. And then let's do for, I don't know, run stitch for the cherry there, or complex fill, whatever you want it to be, or artwork, and then you can convert it. And then I just click inside and it actually traced that. Let's do complex fill because that was, I'm going to do an undo because you can't see the run stitch. So complex fill, I've got my magic wand, boom. And the reason it didn't convert it to stitches is it's asking me what angle do I want those stitches. So I can change that. And then whenever I hit enter, it turns it into stitches. What do you guys think? Isn't that awesome? So the magic wand is part of Perfect Embroidery Pro. And if you don't have the magic wand, you can manually trace with the artwork tool. So let's say this option right here, let me move this out of the way. If you needed to trace this, you could select whichever type of tool you want to convert this to. I generally always start with artwork. I just like that better. But I didn't come from the digitizing world. And then, oops, sorry, I'm going to deselect my magic wand there and do an undo because it did trace a little bit. And this is actually, let me do something here. This actually makes a really good point. Let me zoom in and show you something here. So here, if I choose my artwork tool and my magic wand, if I click in the center, it's going to just trace this as one whole piece. If I click on this black line, it's going to trace the inside and the outside of that black line. Okay, so be careful about that. You don't want this to happen because then when you convert this to stitches, you're not going to have expected results. It's just going to fill in between those two lines. So let's convert this to a complex fill so you can see what I mean. So you see how it just filled it in there, and look at what a mess it made. You really want to do the trace the inside with the magic wand. So, whoops, sorry, wrong button. So let me turn my artwork back on. So now to manually trace, we manually trace the cone, and that was really easy. So with your artwork pen tool, pick a starting point, and then you're going to click, and then, well, I did it again. Look, I've got my magic wand. So let me do undo. My magic wand is on there. It should have been my first clue. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to click these points. Now, if you want a curved point, you hold down your control key, and I urge you don't make a million clicks because it's not necessary. And then you can put them too close together, and it's just not good digitizing practice. So try to stitch, click as far apart as you can. Now for these little things here, if I were to take the time, I could use my arc tool to make a perfect arc there, and it would be fewer clicks. So, and then I go back to my regular tool, and then now I'm going to hide that, and I just drew that. Now look how horrible that looks. Okay, my magic wand did a lot better, but if you drew something like this, it's correctable. Use your shape tool, make these points, do a right mouse click on the point and make it smooth, and you can see how it rounds it out. And you can even use your Bezier tool handles to adjust those if you want. And so you can salvage this, or you could go back and retrace. So it depends on you. Okay. So you can manually trace. Now I can even select a bunch of them at once and say right mouse click and smooth. But what's going to happen, it's going to smooth out these, and watch what happens. So then I've got this little whoop-de-woo instead of this. And for this last one here, I can do a right mouse click and say close line, and it'll connect that for me. Okay. So that's just some things that you can do to manually trace your shape to make your design that you want. And then once you've got it traced, it's as simple as right mouse click, convert to, choose your stitch type. If you do have Perfect Embroidery Pro, your effects panel puts all of those stitch types right there for you. So what do you guys think? Now that one's not as pretty because the colors aren't beautiful. So, but I know that's a lot of detail on this, but now that we've used those tools, let me show you this one more time before we answer our questions. So when you watch this replay, or even as you're watching right now, use that grid that I have listed here. as a reference as to whether or not you've got that feature in your software. So take a picture of it right now while it's on the screen, or watch the replay and push it on pause and make it big and take this screenshot. So these are the tools that I used today, and where you can find them in other software. And I did show you that little snippet of how you could use those pieces of software together. But there's all different ways to take a file and turn it into stitches. The absolute easiest, remember, is to start with an artwork, because all you have to do is open that and convert it to your stitch type. So it's a two-step process if you already have a vector file that's an SVG or an FCM. So how cool, right? So I absolutely love being able to use all of those tools to help make that process much easier. So, okay, so let's answer some questions here. So do you have a list of, we talked about that. Hopefully that's coming soon, Annie. So I was thinking that yours I had left off. And so can you make files to be ready for the Bernina cut work blade, foot, or tool? Yes, we can make cut work files. That is in Perfect Embroidery Pro, Pam. You certainly can do that. It's under the run stitch settings, and you can turn it to a cut file. So Sugar881 says, every time I watch these videos, I buy something else. I can do anything now. Love Dime software. Thank you. I'm so glad. So thank you so much for all of your support. That's hilarious. I love it. So I really am just trying to help you guys learn to use your software. But, you know, we start to see how easy it is when you own the, you know, the right tools. So, and then Linda Johnson says, will the magic wand work for a complex line design? So yeah, it'll trace anything, but if it's open, then it's gonna you know, it'll trace the closed area. So just test it, Linda. Bring it in and just play with it if you you know, want to give it a try to see what it's like. Hey, my friend Stephanie from Caesars here, she said the magic wand is magical, and I definitely agree with that. So it's easy to trace. And then Linda says, wow, wow, wow. So yes, I agree. We like easy, right? And then Marianne says, so I could bring in a design from my scan and cut and change it to embroidery? Yes, you absolutely can. I didn't know all that about the magic wand. I know we don't hardly use it with all the SVG files that are out there. You don't need it. You don't need the magic wand. But if you do have an image that you want to trace, then you certainly can. So, and we already answered that for Pam about the cut work tool. You certainly can do that. And Reen said, this is so easy using Dime software. So yes, it absolutely is. Thank you, Reen, for your support. So, okay, so I don't see any more questions out there. And then Mickey says, you really are so knowledgeable, but you have to write first to take notes. So I definitely, I agree. It's hard to remember everything, Mickey, but remember, you can rewatch this as many times as you want. You can pause it. You can make notes whenever you pause, and then that way you're learning at your pace. So I don't like to go too terribly slow, because depending on the different levels, if you need it to be slower, you can always rewatch. But then I don't want it to be boring either. So that's another thing to think about. So okay, don't forget on Thursday. This Thursday, July the 18th, I should have put a slide here. I'm actually going to be demonstrating this Embroidery Special FX software program. I'm going to be showing you all the exciting things that it can do this Thursday on our live Facebook and live YouTube. So make sure you join me on Thursday. But then on August the 6th, we are going to see more of the how-to. So on Thursday, I'm going to show you all the exciting things that it can do, but it's not really a formal lesson. It's just, hey, here's what it can do. But then on August the 6th, we will get into the how do I make that happen. So make sure you join me this Thursday on our Facebook Live at 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. This Thursday again. So I was just looking to see, I thought I saw one more question pop up. Yep, I see Wanda says, yes, is it available later? She's at the doctor's office and she's missing it. Well, Wanda, I hope everything's okay. Yes, it's available later. Go to our Designs and Machine Embroidery YouTube channel. The easiest way to find is to sort by the playlist. There are little tabs at the top. So click playlist, and then it actually sorts all Dime videos. You can see the Software Success all grouped together. together. That's where you'll find these videos. Between Friends, that's our Thursday videos with Eileen, and I am on there sometimes, and Deborah Jones is on there sometimes. So yes, you can rewatch. Great question. Okay, guys, I hope you learned lots, and I hope that helps you. If you have any further questions, find me or our other educators from Dime over on our Dime Facebook user group called Dime Inspiration Software Users. If you have a specific question, go there, join that group, ask that question, and you will definitely get an answer from us and even thousands of knowledgeable users as well. So come see me in 2 weeks to learn how to use your special FX software if you haven't already, or if you just want to see more about what it does. Check out our website, dzgns.com, for software specials. This is Perfect Embroidery Pro, but we do have other software also available. And please, please, please check your local dealer. Support local when you can. All right, guys, that's the last thing I have. Until we have another software success, I'll say bye for now, and thank you all for being here.